Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Erudition Network. In the Erudition Network's interactive Black History and Knowledge session, I am your host, Eddie Phillips, and this is an hour that we dedicate every week to go over Black history, talk about Black history and knowledge. I welcome you if this is your first time watching. I hope you enjoy this program, and I hope you are interactive and you ask questions and you um, try to pick the brain of what it is that we're talking about here. Tina, I'm glad to see you. Thank you for joining us um, as we go through this. Um, Today, we're going to talk about today. Let's give a couple of moments for people to get in here because we came on just a little bit later, but we're here. Um, what I want to talk about today, I'll talk about a couple of things. I really want us to be. I hope that we would be interactive tonight because I really think um, I'd like to get some questions in here. Um, Hold on a second. Someone had sent us something. Okay, well, whatever that is. Uh, just looking through our messages to see if I got anything in here um, from you all over the last few hours. But yeah, the purpose of this interactive is just that. We want it to be interactive. We want questions, and we want people to engage. The more we engage with each other, the more we learn with each other, and I think presents a better experience for all of us out here who are seeking better understanding. Eric, good to see you. Good to see you. Are you gonna post for me another um, thing about Israel? Or are you gonna wait until the end of the show uh, to put your familiar comment about Israel? Uh, Eric is my brother from the Navy. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. Um, I'm going to give it a couple of more moments. So, hey, if you're on here, share, get people engaged to come on and participate in this broadcast tonight. Let's grow this network. This is a really, really important time um, for us to start talking about real history and real facts here. Um, if you've noticed, um, we're having so many again over the last 2 days. We've had shootings again. People are wrapping up with this whole political season, and a lot of it is misinformation. People are doing things because they're misinformed. Um, they really don't have a really good knowledge of history and where how we got to where we are, and they lean um, to their own understanding. And I think that that is a problem. My sister is on here. Eric said, I'll wait to the end. Tina said, explain how history is repeated from 1800s, like you mentioned Monday on your show. Okay, I will get into that tonight. I do promise. Um, I appreciate you, sis. I'm looking at this picture and seeing that you are definitely my sister. You look like a clone of me because I came before you. So, I just want you to know that. But I love you. I love you. I love you. Um, Let me say this. All right, we're gonna get into this because you know, whoever is here, you're here, and I appreciate you being here. Whoever's not, they'll come in later, whatever. But what we will do, we'll get into this. So Tina makes a very important point here, and me and her talked about this a little bit earlier. She mentioned that she had Tony Briscoe, a friend of the network, on her show the other day, and they were talking about some things, and I had made a comment in the while they were talking about Reconstruction, and um, we are, in my historical opinion, we are living in a new nadir, a new period of Reconstruction. Um, because I see the violence, I see the racism, the ethnocentrism, and all of these things that are happening. They are repeating. If you are not aware of what Reconstruction is, Reconstruction was the period of time, right? From I would say 1865 to roughly around 1870-ish, right? Let's say 76. Let's be nice. Where enslaved people, you know, the Emancipation Proclamation had declared people to be free. Um, the 14th Amendment granted equal protection and citizens regardless of race, creed, or color. And then you had the 15th Amendment prohibited racial discrimination in voting. And so when we had all of those different things, and oh yeah, let me not forget the 13th Amendment, um, which abolished slavery. So the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and looking at the Emancipation Proclamation, uh, changed the dynamics of this country, right? Um, People were emancipated, people were free to be who they wanted to be. But what we saw was that many white Southerners resisted these changes vehemently. They did not like the idea of times changing, of them being equal, and in some places, even the minority. Um, and so they decided to enact different laws, codes. We call them the Black Codes during that time. And those Black Codes are important as we look at where I'm talking about with us revisiting Reconstruction, because see, the Black Codes were laws that restricted free people's rights and imposed harsh penalties on them if they did things. Simple things like loitering, being in a place where they shouldn't be, where they were supposed to not be, given by society's predilections. Being in jobs and not being denied jobs and education and different assistance, all of these things were happening, right? As America tried to reconstruct itself after the Civil War. Now, that did not mean that blacks did not, African Americans, black people did not go out and do everything that they possibly could to um, align themselves to being free and educating themselves and finding jobs and building towns. We had things like the Freedmen's Bureau and things like that to help to provide education and assistance for a lot of people. But when we look at the compromise, when we look at what happened as Reconstruction failed, and you say, well, Eddie, what makes you think that we're kind of in Reconstruction right now? What we are right now is we are a changing country. We're a changing world. We are we have a worldwide information system. We have the ability to see things as they are, as opposed to what people tell us that they are. If we delve deep enough, we have the ability to go in and figure out complex things that many people in decades and centuries before did not have access to. And because of this, we also have a shift in the cultures where you have people of color, their numbers are on the rise, as opposed to people who have been traditionally termed themselves as being white, Anglo-Saxon. And so there is a desire to retain power, almost in a way. And I think that um me and Eric um talked about this when we talked about apartheid, right, in South Africa, When you look at apartheid, which is a system of racial segregation and discrimination, but it implements and it puts the minority, right? People who were white or whatever in power over those of color, right? And so, though the minority does not have the numbers, they will, in fact, try to control the majority by laws. Anytime you have ever had this in history, there has been, it's that by definition is authoritarianism. And when you fall into that alignment, people start to fight. People start to fight. And you're seeing this again. You're seeing people say, I want my country back. You're seeing people make statements like, mine, my hometown, my country, my values, right? And they are allowing themselves to get caught up in the racial lunacy. What's up, Mike? Good to see you. So when we look at the 1800s, and because we don't teach history the way we should in this country, we're repeating it. We are repeating it. When people walked out and said, hey, listen, you are aware that there are Black women, right? Because Tina and them on their show, they talked about Hidden Figures. There were Black women who helped us to get to the moon. When people started to talk to you about, hey, there are Black people who helped to create this cell phone here, who helped to create these game systems. There are people of color who have done this. This was not all white people. People get angry. They tell you, they give it a term now, what we call it, woke. You woke. When in reality, right, that's a really, I don't use that term because I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I feel that it's an ignorant term. You can be woke, awake, and still dumb, ignorant, right? You can still be detached. And unfortunately, a lot of us are still detached. We call ourselves woke, but we're detached. We're allowing ourselves to follow, just follow. You know, I always use that example of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Obviously, when he led the mice and the or the rats and the children away, they were woke. You're woke. You're somewhat conscious when you're hypnotized, but it doesn't mean that you're not following something that is illicit, something that you should not be following, because you're either not intelligent enough to discern it, or willfully allowing yourself to be led astray by, as Malcolm X said, bamboozled. And it's putting you in a bad place. But let's get back to the subject at hand, right? It's funny how the term woke has hijacked. Yeah, it has been hijacked and it has been taken. I look at some of the terms that we utilize, and I have said this before on this program, and I'm going to say it again. We need to understand how logic works. If I start an argument and I give you the conclusion to the argument, right? Because it's what they do. If I tell you that, let's give an example, what we're doing right here, right now. If I tell you that Black history in the United States is garbage, we don't really get taught it, right? Teaching of it, I should say, is garbage. And then I say, wait a minute, let's remove all of the woke or things I don't like that you talk about in Black history. Let's create that, right? So that's an argument. But on the end, right, there's another argument against the guys like DeSantis and others who fight against it. No, let's institute. We need to bring these books back. We need to bring this teaching back. But the teaching that was taken away was jacked up because it never really gave us real focus on who we are. It only taught us what they want us to think we are. So now we find ourselves with three arguments going on here, and we're trying to fight the middle argument of the woke against it to return, right, to what never worked for us to begin with. And it's illogical. It's illogical. But it is an illogical situation that has never been set up by us. The truth is, our churches, our homes, our families, our social groups, we should be teaching each other. We should be growing each other. And we should understand that everybody learns a little differently. Everybody perceives things a little differently. I remember my sons when I gave them tests to figure out how it is that they learned, right? And I gave them those tests because I wanted them to understand, right, that everybody learned differently. And I found that in my house, I have a lot of visual learners. They see it. That's the major way that they get it, right? But I found one of my children, right, is an auditory oral learner. You have to explain it to him. You have to talk to him. And the problem is that even when in our churches, in our movies, have you ever watched a movie with someone? I wasn't even going to go down this path. Have you ever watched a movie with someone and you watched a movie and you thought, man, this is visually stimulating. I love it. The action, everything. And the person next to you with is like, this is boring. I don't get it. It don't have a plot. I don't understand the character. I just don't get it. It's how we take in information. Maybe 2 or 3 times after, they'll watch it and then they'll start to understand it a little bit better. And they go, okay, I get it now. But we have to start using better logic and how we teach these things and how we do these things. Sorry, I wasn't ignoring you guys' comments here. Mike, okay. Being woke was just another way of saying being aware. Yeah, probably at the beginning. Willful is the new word trending. Teaching of it. It's actually illegal to teach Black history in some states. It's not illegal. That's wrong. They will tell you, Eric, that it is not illegal, right? It is just prohibited for you to teach anything that is going to hurt somebody's feelings, make them feel secondary. And I would argue that in history, that happens anyway. It is my argument against 1619. Pastor Gibson, good to see you. Good to see you. I know you're on. I'm surprised you're on. Because I know you come on after a little bit later. Mike. Florida. Yes, Florida. But let me break it down to you. That whole argument about feelings being hurt is crap. It's crap. Because let me tell you something. If you look at 1619, oh yes, he's talking about 1619. Let me tell you something about 1619. If that is your start of Black history, which you got people walking around with hats and t-shirts and pins and folks standing up in public meetings saying, my people been here since 1619. And the fact is, that's wrong. Your people were here long before that. They were here long before that. Your people were here in the 1400s. They were here in the 1500s. There's evidence from Columbus himself that they were here even before he got here. But they tell you that your history in America started with Dutch slaves arriving in 1619. And if you believe that, then you remove all of the knowledge of the people of Kush. You remove all of the knowledge of Africa. You remove all of the knowledge of what is now known as the Middle East. You remove the knowledge that our people, African people, gave to the Carthaginians, gave to the Greeks, gave to the Turks, gave to everyone. You remove all of that by starting your history on a slave ship bound to America. And you empower European history by suggesting that you are secondary. How does that not hurt your feelings? How should that not offend our children? You're telling me that my history started with you in servitude. The first books I see, and I'm trying to look, I don't right now. The first pictures that you see of me, of my people, are in chains, bent over, being whipped. That's it. And if you think that the 1619 is what started your history, you're lost. For weeks, I went through and I found myself referencing W.E.B. Du Bois's book, The Gift of Black Folks. And I was like, Lord, I don't know why you're giving me to constantly quote Dr. Du Bois's book, or why you're giving me this idea to constantly talk about what Dr. Du Bois was talking about and what Black people bought to everything. The gifts that we provided. And this is not ethnocentric. This is not me telling you that there are not other valuable contributions from other cultures, but we learn those contributions. You learn about the kings and queens of England. You learn about Newton and all of these people who brought thought and experience. You learn about Leibniz. You learn about all of these things. But you don't know how Black people affected democracy, changed the idea of what democracy meant to the world. When America goes out and says, we are a democracy, we are the bastions of freedom, you know who they're really using that evidence based on? Our ancestors, our people. Because before the freeing of the slave, there was no real such thing in America as democracy. The Black slaves' desire, push, singing to God, to tell man that they should be free, it broadened the idea of democracy in America and throughout the world. It gave a voice to what it meant to be oppressed and to seek help, and then to showcase how once you were free, you could excel. That's what we bought. And a lot of us we don't really get it. We don't really get it. He said, don't mention Spike Lee. Our ancestors learned valuable skills as slaves. I learned this in the state of Florida. Yeah, they learned valuable skills as slaves. Now, let me give you the truth of that. Slavery, right? Slaves learned, enslaved people did learn skill sets. They learned skill sets because they were intelligent. They learned skill sets because the whites, who were at the same time calling them savages, realized how intelligent they were. The Benin people and the people of Africa were skilled metal workers, woodworkers. They knew how to plant. They knew what plants to eat, what plants to avoid. They brought all of that knowledge over here with them into captivity. They changed the way the European ate, stored his food, cleaned his body, how he addressed disease. All of that happened because of the black, what do they call it? They call it the Columbus exchange. That's what they call it. Columbus bought this and the Europeans, but they never talk about the African exchange. They never talk about that melding, right? That melding of indigenous people over here and blacks, Africans, and what they brought together that grew this country. None of those are talked about as gifts. Whenever you tell people you don't want them to know information, they work harder to know and play dumb so you don't know what they know. I do believe that there's a part of people who do play dumb. I also believe that there are people who are owned and can't speak on what they know because the people who have them on their leash or on their chain won't allow them to. Mike, what is the significance? So 1619 does have a significance. I will give that. What is significant about it is that we see what it meant to be a non-chattel slave, right? We understand what indentured to. We understood that whites could have kept blacks over here as indentured servants in a way that the old world had done. But they chose to initiate chattel laws. They chose to initiate chattel laws so that they could make sure that they owned everything that came out of that black woman. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth. And so the significance to me of 1619 is just that. That's its only significance to me. It shows what they could have done and what they chose to do. Irish people came over here. It could be indentured servants. Why couldn't we? Because it didn't make any sense economically. You know, I've been telling people for years now that partus sequitur ventrum. Partus sequitur ventrum. Oh, I'm not speaking a spell. That's not Harry Potter. And I'm not speaking in tongues. Right? Partus sequitur ventrum was the law of the land. And once it became the law of the land, nobody could change it. Because even those who said they were friendly slave owners wanted to own. Right? They wanted to own anything that came out of that woman. Look it up. Let's get some brothers on the wall that sound. They're still ushering the element of knowledge that directly given in sense awareness, perception, and presentation. Yeah, but there's still also schadenfreude. And if we understand that America is full of schadenfreude and has always been, then it won't make any sense, right? That sense awareness, that perception, and that presentation, they don't care about that. They willfully want to do you harm. They willfully want to ignore your pain. And some of them want to glorify in it. We see it in our laws. We see it in how the police treat us. We see it in how some of these businesses treat us. We see it in our workplace. And those are the truths that we deal with. But let's get back to the idea of a second Reconstruction period. When we consider that Reconstruction from 1865, let's be, if we were to be nice, 1865 to like say 1880 was supposed to be progressive, healing. It was supposed to change and show that people were Christian, because this is what they called themselves, right? And God-fearing, and there is nothing we should be united, and there should be equality and no racial violence in any of this. But the amount of violence from 1865 to 1920 skyrocketed. Because when people could no longer own you, Eric made a comment that slaves learn valuable skills. When they could no longer own them skills freely, you know, Big Joe was the one that put the shoes on the horse. Sally them, they kept our gardens, they kept all of our vegetables and kept us fed and did all of this. And of course we had the cotton pickers who was out there, and tobacco workers and the sugarcane workers. Now they don't work for us no more for free. That's my property. So what did they do? They became violent. They became violent for two reasons. One, because they felt that they had been economically violated. And two, they were afraid of the rise in numbers of African Americans, of former slaves in this country. They were afraid of it even when they wrote the Declaration of Independence. They've always been afraid of it. The murdering and killing and shipping of slaves was not just done for an economical basis. It was population control at its earliest form. The lynch mobs operated with impunity after slavery. Before, when slaves were enslaved, you had slave catcher squads. They could beat the slave. They could do things to the slave. They could probably cut a finger or whatever, but they couldn't kill that slave because that slave had insurance papers up north. That slave had an ownership contract from the slave owner. And you had to return that. And then the slave owner would pay you a little bit of a reward for catching his slave. But after, when you was free, I'm gonna kill him, because here's the thing, I ain't getting nothing from him. And so they went about doing horrible things. Burning, immolation, chopping them up. Things you would never think that they called the slaves, the enslaved people, savages. But they were the ones who engaged in burnings, mutilations, and torture. They were the ones who were killing kids. They were the ones who were killing babies because they had no cost value anymore. And we got to keep those numbers down. Too many of them, and they will rout us. They're going to realize and they're going to take over. This is why I say we're living in a second Reconstruction here, because that fear is still here. In the next 15 years, people of color will outnumber the whites in this country. You think that there is a strange reason why we have white men predominantly, I'm not saying they're the only ones, but they are the majority, running around and shooting up schools and killing people? You think there's a reason why so many people showed up at the Capitol screaming that they wanted America back? Who have been told and infected with the idea that the other shoe is going to drop, you're going to be secondary, they're going to be more than you. You don't think that it's surprising when you have white men getting on television from the alt-right and whatever, telling you that racism is now being done against them? While they still make 30% more than anybody in jobs, while they still, by statistics and by study, have the least amount of education, but the highest paid jobs. It's a reality that we have to face. And if you go back and look at your history, you realize we're repeating it. Go back and look from 1865 to about 1880. Look at the profiling and the targeting of blacks for loitering, sitting on your porch, standing on a corner too long. Too many of y'all in one place at one time. And the parallels shouldn't be shocking. It's not progress. We're regressing. And as we keep confronting it, as we keep looking at it, you got a case going on right now where a young black boy has been suspended, what I think is 3 times now, kicked out of school because of his hair, because of the way his hair looks, because he got locks, because people don't want to allow you to enter their community, and they use anything and everything to push you out of it. The national history of violence against African Americans is shocking, profound, and fact-based. And fact-based. And yet we keep allowing ourselves to believe that there is no comparison. And I get on here every Thursday and I'm telling you, there is a comparison. You have to be smarter, wiser. You got to study your history like you study that word and see the connections between the two. See the connections between the two. I sat here and said, Tina had her show on the other day, and I had made the comment that even when we look at our science, because they're attacking our science too, right? Even when we look at our science, you have people who are out here telling you in the church, in our communities, don't trust science. Don't trust science. And it's crazy because here's the thing. God is bigger than that. He's bigger than that. If you have faith in God, I'm saying all of you do. We were talking about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, and how matter and energy right, are fundamental. They're fundamental. The atoms, the subatomic particles, the things that make us up, beyond our DNA, beyond anything, beyond our blood flow, beyond our, all at the quantum level. But I don't see people in churches talking about quantum mechanics because that don't align. But it does. Because as you get further down into the quantum physics work, and you describe the behavior and the nature and the scale of how atoms and subatomic particles and things work, you start to realize that they're ordered. They're ordered. It's not chaos. They have discrete values. They work similarly. They orbit things similarly to what you see in space, to what you see even at a subatomic scale. But we don't talk about that because we have taught ourselves to be willfully, and when my wife, I saw her comment earlier, willfully ignorant on these things. And we don't align them. So when we don't align them to what our belief, because they are facts, proven, look through a machine and you can see it, they're facts. But how does that align? And then you read that word or you understand and you say, well, let me go and teach before somebody else comes and tells us, because I was told this for the majority of my life, that science and religion don't mix, which is a bold lie. It's a lie. And so on this program, we talk about history, we talk about a lot of different things, but I always try to give you something to think about. Something to think about. Look at you guys' comments if you got any on here. Yeah, we try to very much to be factual, Pastor Gibson. The great replacement these conservatives keep talking about is, the replacement. But it didn't start. We need to understand they're reading these books. They're reading these theories. And they're pushing these theories further in time. Facts. I like when people try to call me when I'm on. They're forecasting, so loopholes are designed to prevent the forecasted future from developing and hindering their ability to prosper. Yes, that is true. They are forecasting, but at the same time, we need to be forecasting too. You can't keep playing checkers while somebody playing chess. You in the wrong game. You're not even playing. You got to learn. And the best thing to learn is to get out here and pick the minds of how we learned. Let me give you guys another thing here. When you look at our ancestors, as advanced as the European said he was, Columbus wrote about how advanced they were over the Taino people and how advanced they were over Africans and all of this. As advanced as Europeans thought they were, right? They learned so much from the Africans and the indigenous people here in these lands. As a matter of fact, when we look at the Pilgrims, right? When they came over, they would have died had it not been for the indigenous people who showed them how to survive. The same people that they later went and victimized. Actually, the same people that they victimized when they first came to shore, when they raided their burial grounds and stole their materials to try to survive as long as they did. Go read the books about the first source books of Plymouth and see what they did when they got over here. But as civilized And as advanced as they said they were, they learned a lot. They took that information. It was slaves, enslaved people, who a lot of the slave owners would go and say, go to mama such such, and she'll make a poultice, she'll make something to give you medicine before the time of medicine that we live in, going to the pharmacy. That's where they came from. They went out and got herbs, and they went out and got things, and they healed. We talked about this on a program on Erudition a couple of months ago about slave medicine. That's how people survived. But we were uncivilized. Some of the things that you see in these plantation houses down in the South and how they constructed and built them homes, the slaves built those homes. The White House, the original White House, the slaves built those homes. But they're uncivilized. They're ignorant. Your history is grander, larger, and more vast than what you have been told. It is something to be proud of. Pastor Gibson, I know you're going to have to get out of here because I know you got your show on at 7. We start a little late, and I'll be on to catch you. If Pastor Gibson comes on right after us every Thursday, please, please, please support him, support his ministry. I love history. And I try so hard to spend a lot of my time teaching it. Maybe I should write about it and do more. My wife is on me. But here's the thing. At the heart of it, history starts, the knowledge and the teaching of history starts by me giving you a fact, you taking that fact, you going to go look up that fact, you validating that fact, and then you pass it on. The last thing I want to talk about in these last few moments, as I say, we're living back through our time, a secondary reconstruction, is the violence. See, back then we had the original rising of the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK, and they targeted African Americans, and they tried to scare them, and they tried to do things to harm. But what stopped it was the President of the United States, Ulysses S. Grant, sent down the military during Reconstruction to inflict martial law on the South to stop them from killing our ancestors. And for a period of time, it stopped. It stopped on a grand scale, I should say. But then there became this compromise. There was a compromise in 1877, and the Reconstruction ended. And people felt this was the time now to attack, to harm, to kill, to force our will on Black people and people of color. And this went on arguably from 1877 all the way to the 1950s. And I would even say to you right now, some of it has never died. We're still dealing with this racial, violent mentality that gives us two choices. W.B. Du Bois said that we can learn to be more intelligent. We can invest in our knowledge and our empowerment. And Booker T. Washington, who said that all we really need to do is learn some vocations, learn how to fit in, learn how to work for them, and then maybe they will allow us to be a part of them. We're still seeing that today. There are some of us that compromise ourselves. Oh, we get rich. Booker T. Washington started Tuskegee. He was recognized by presidents. He was invited to the White House by Theodore Roosevelt. He was financed by Andrew Carnegie. We make money doing it, getting a loan, a fiddle loan, at the cost of our souls, at the cost of our pride, at the cost of who we are. And we're still seeing that today. Some of us, we fantasize. We're fanatical about the people who we see in the public who are making all of this money, and never consider that those people got a price on them, that they're unhappy. The cost of it. I often tell a story how Booker T. Washington, for everything that he did, toward the end of his life, he was beat almost to death by two white men while on a visit. I believe it was in California. He happened to be walking behind a white woman and they beat him almost to death. They didn't know who he was. And before they even apologized upon learning who he was, Booker T. Washington made a statement in the newspaper and said he forgave the white man because he understood why they beat him. He had to make that statement in order to keep what he got, what he had. Can't seem to be militant or radical. These are problems that we still face today. These are things that we still face today. Yep, condition thinking is stinking thinking, and it is true, and it's still here. Blessings to you too, Lonnie. We got to do better. We have been trying on Erudition for the last couple of weeks. We've been advocating and asking people to help us because Erudition has a financial cost for what we do and what we're trying to do. And we have been, my wife has asked people to pledge $40,000 and $1,000, and I have told people to help us for months, and we're asking people to help because we have a goal. We have some things we have to do to reach the people out here, and I want to say thank you. We had some people. My cousin Joseph, he helped us. He sent us in a donation. He's an assistant pastor for New Nation Church of God in Christ, New Nation Ministries. My auntie evangelist Juanita Phillips, she sent in a donation. Pastor Razor, I really appreciate him for Faith and Hope. He helped out, sent us. All of these things are blessings for us to be able to do more on this program. I never assume that everybody can do everything, but to do what you can. We have courses, we have books, we have things we need to start doing, and we're trying to do. And it costs. But we're asking you, if you want to donate, you see our ticker down here at the bottom for the Erudition Network. And if you know me, I'm not one to ask for anything. That's a big issue for me. I've been known to even forget to put the ticker on, and my son will be like, "Dad, you didn't put the ticker on during the entire episode." But we got to do better, and we got to do some things here, ladies and gentlemen, because right now, as we see all of this stuff happening, we had another shooting, we have all this political stuff going on, we have basically wars and fights going on in the world based on religious and ethnogenic belief. We have people here who don't know who they are. Folks are celebrating the wrong things. People are falling into traps. There's so much stuff on social media that, that is just craziness. This video sent to me about a week or so ago about Black Friday and how Black Friday was utilized. The Black Friday came across because Black folks was being sold for cheap on Black Friday, which is completely ludicrous because the slave was never sold for cheap. And it took people to go debunk the lady and then take it. Then what they do is they say, well, we're only selling this for entertainment value. Never a fact, never a historical statement, never a sourced detail, just me saying something randomly to keep you caught up. There's a book here. I was sitting here thinking a moment ago, I always have books on my desk because I like them, and I've shared this book with you all before. But there's a book here. It's from Cambridge University Press. It was sent to me by a good friend of mine. He's an archaeologist. Africa and Africans in the Making of the Atlantic World. I cannot stress enough how you need to start to study and know your history was long before 1619. How our ancestors helped to shape this world. Sometimes it's just simply picking up a book, reading it, and then going to go validate what it is that you read. Someone asked me if I would initiate a 50-book challenge and just list 50 books that I believe are essential for people to read in the area of Black history. And maybe we will do that. But we have to do better, and we have to start supporting each other, helping each other, growing the knowledge. I wanted to take the last few moments of the show to do that and to talk about those things. I thank all of you who have joined us tonight. I thank Pastor Gibson because I know he has a program that comes right on. He is on right now. They come on at 7, and I really, really would ask you to join them for GWC Ministries and support Pastor Gibson. I'm gonna try to see if I can get that link from him and put in here. We have a lot of people that are big helps to us who have supported Erudition, and we definitely want to be a support to them as much as we possibly can because all of that, Tony Briscoe, Mike and Phil for the Man Up Real Talk show, all of these people, Pastor Razor, who gets on, these things are so important, ladies and gentlemen, in a world that we're living in right now. We got to counter these narratives that are destroying us. And so I want you to support all of these people who definitely have supported us as we grow. All right. So I'm going to put a link in here from what I can see of Pastor Gibson's ministry. And I want you all to join them on their live. As I said, when I get off, they will definitely be on. Here is the link for his program, which is on right now. If you go on there right after this, tell them, say, hey, the Erudition Network or Brother Eddie and Brother Tina and them, Sister Tina and Sister Tina and them said that we should be here. We can learn something. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great night. Thank you so much. Please feel free to donate. Whatever you do will definitely help us. I appreciate you all. Have a great, 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 wonderful evening and the rest of this weekend. And God willing, we will see you here next week. Thank you.